They paint, they dance, they compose and they sing. Berlin is crawling with creatives. Since the fall of the wall, Berlin has developed into one of the world's most important centers for the production of music and art, with many of its creators coming from abroad. The stories often sound familiar. Initially, they just wanted to check out Berlin for a little while. And then many of the international creatives end up staying, appreciating the laid-back and supportive environment of Berlin. That's what Australian singer-songwriter Kat Frankie drew to Berlin as well. Like many others, she just wanted to come for a little while. That was almost 10 years ago now.
Berlin is cheap, so damn cheap, and artists like to live in cheap metropolises, and it's the last cheap metropolis in Europe.
But it's not only the low rent and living costs. Kat also found herself being part of a supportive artists community for the first time. And Kat is not alone. The number of Australians moving to Berlin has been steadily growing over the past years, says Günther Schlothauer from the Australian Embassy.
Officially, we understand there are about 2,000 and a few more actually formally registered in Berlin. All up in Germany, probably around 10,000. Quite a few, we are aware, are in the broadest sense in the arts or in the creative industries. But we reckon actually that there's more based in Berlin not formally registering themselves.
The reasons why so many Australians enjoy Berlin are obvious. Its affordability, its quirky bars and clubs, its sheer endless opportunities to indulge in its hedonism, and the free spirit which seems to pulsate with every beat of the city's song. But these are also exactly the reasons why it is so easy to get lost in this artist's paradise, warns Kat Frankie.
There's less limitations on what art is and what art can be. Kind of like anything is possible, and you have to be a little bit careful not to kind of lose yourself in that and still figure out what your concept is or your idea is and stick to it and finish it and see it through. When I first came here, I realised that there was a lot of really, really unbelievably talented people who just had a project, but basically they just hung out in cafes all day or they just got stoned every afternoon, and the time just wasted away.
Kat Frankie managed to stay focused, and she also realised that being an artist is fun, but it's not all play. At the end of the day, it's a job that needs to be taken seriously to make it work.
I was a little bit more ambitious, and that's a little bit tricky because that's not a cool Berlin thing to be, I guess. It's a bit businessy, and you have to earn a certain amount of money if you're going to be allowed to stay in the country. And I desperately wanted to stay here.
So did her fellow countryman Rick Bull. He's a producer and DJ from Sydney and has been living and working in Berlin for the past 5 years. He also welcomed the support other Berliner DJs offered him, but learned that one needs to choose wisely who to let them help.
DJs rarely make good business people and will rarely get you to the venue safely on time, or the money in your bank account, or a hotel as opposed to a mattress on the floor of a squat.
The lack of money and making shift often spawns creativity. But on the other hand, artists not only want to be inspired, but also need to be free in order to be creative. And that includes financial freedom. On top of the worries about money, there's also the constant fear of having to leave Berlin for other reasons. Depending on the artist's visa situation, it may be cancelled at any time. This is what soul musician Ray Mann has on his mind a lot since coming to Berlin about 2 years ago.
I can never really be 100% settled. So on the one hand, it feels temporary and unreliable, but at the same time, in order to build relationships and try to make something work, I have to live as if I'm living here without being under threat of having to leave at any moment. That's a big challenge, trying to alternate between those two headspaces constantly.
Despite all the obstacles and the challenge to start all over again, expats don't stop flocking to Berlin. Almost like following a siren calling them. And this siren does not only promise bigger audiences, amazing venues, and Europe at your fingertips, but also lures with money. The budget for the arts is much bigger in Germany than in Australia, and also the people's appreciation for culture is different in Europe, says Brendan O'Shea. He is an arts journalist in Berlin, a musician and Australian himself.
There's a respect for art. The German public, particularly in Berlin, they're very open, they're very interested, they're very encouraging, and they're very supportive. Australians need to be more intrigued and more curious about people, the world, life, politics, all of these sorts of things. And art is something that we need, and until a society actually sees that, then the funding comes and then the acknowledgement comes and all the things that go with it in that respect.
And travelling in itself certainly broadens one's horizon, especially for Australians who are on an island 20,000 kilometres away from Europe.
If you sit on an island and decide you don't want to be part of the rest of it, then you become a bit boring and uninteresting. And perhaps that's what a lot of these artists go in pursuit of, some sort of stimulus. And I believe that if they come back, and they should be encouraged to come back, that they're able to bring that stimulus with them.
Artist Ray Mann couldn't agree more. Like his peers Kat Franke and Rick Bull, he does not know how long he's going to stay. But Berlin is definitely worth experiencing, if only even for a little while.
I think the thing that gets it over the line for friends that are visiting is that first impression of Berlin when you come here from Australia, which is like, oh my God, there's just so much freedom around here, and we can drink beer in the streets and party until dawn and do all these kinds of things that there's so many restrictions about in Australia. And if that's what helps them to understand any idea of why you would go through the completely unglamorous rest of it to stay here in that, then so be it.